All right. What's up, everybody? We are live. Let me bring in Tom right now. Boom, there he is. Tom, how are you?
I'm good, Marco. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good to see you. As
I
I
see we
told
dressed the same for today's interview.
yeah, last time we saw each other was, I don't know if you remember, was at John Scully's event he did at the
Yeah,
which one was
yeah.
it? What place? Dallas
Well, last
Barbecue?
year we did the boxing amateur boxing reunion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was fun. That was fun.
that
Um,
was.
Yeah, it was cool seeing all those people, and I mean, there's a bunch of people that I hadn't seen in years, from the New York scene, and then people like you who came from out of town.
Yeah, that was. Well, you know what's really fun is this kind of dawned on me a couple of years ago, and I know you'd relate to this, but like Scully and I fought, right? And whether you agree or disagree, he was awarded a decision that a lot of people in the audience, including myself, didn't quite agree with, right?
As amateurs,
As
obviously.
amateurs.
Yeah.
And without question or doubt, he went on to be a far more accomplished fighter than I am. So proper respect and credit given. And he'd say later, hey, listen, when I was fighting you, I was like 18 or 19 and you were 23 or 22. He goes, I was like fighting a man. He goes, I was really intimidated and it was early in my career and blah, blah, blah. But he was given a decision and they didn't want us competing we were New York fighters fighting in Massachusetts and they wanted to kind of phase that out. And I have no grievance with any of it. I just don't like losing, right? So I had a real grievance against Scully for the longest time. And he'd even see Tyson and it's like, hey, man, I like to say hello to Tom Patti, your stable maybe fought. And Mike would be like, stay away from Tommy, man. He hates you. He's pissed off. Don't even think about being friends with he's not cool with you. And it was true. So, because I just hate losing. I just,
So you were upset with him for the decision.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, totally. And so we later met up and it dawned on me, listen, man, here's the reality. We needed each other. Win, lose, draw, we grow from those humbling lessons, whatever they may be, as unpalatable as they may be. But without each other, we don't exist. We bring the best out in each other. We can't fight against ourselves, right? So we need each other. And that's my whole point is coming back full circle here in that reunion. I got a chance to see Farad Pinchback, one of the great fighters to come out of New York City, New York in decades. And, he was my Mount Everest, man. He beat me once. He beat me twice. He beat me in Lake Placid for some regional, something championship, national something. Then he and I drew each other and we fought Empire State Games, and I got the silver medal. He got the gold. And then we met New York City semifinals in the Golden Gloves.
Okay.
And so I beat him on the third fight. Okay. And it kind of advanced me as where I was going to go and maybe sidelined where he was going to go, win the gloves, turn pro and whatever. And I hadn't seen him ever since that fight.
Right.
And his career didn't go as far as it perhaps could have or should have, and maybe under different management or
with
something.
Most
I don't know.
fighters, yeah.
Yeah. So seeing him in Times Square and he's like, where's Tom Patti? He came over to me, gave me the biggest, most loving hug with both of us had tears in our eyes in that reunion. And I'm so humbled by that experience.
That's great.
Where here's a guy that we were rivals. He beat me 2 out of 3 times. I kind of maybe beat him when it mattered the most in the gloves. Right. I don't know. Who cares? Well, he was a far better fighter and way more accomplished. But for me to have that kind of reception from him, I had some meaning in his life and equally he in mine.
That's
and
great.
So this is, again, going back to what I said, is like we needed each other to push each other and to compete against each other and to be better because of each other.
Well, so let's rewind a little for the viewers. And you were a Cus D'Amato, I guess, disciple. I mean, Cus literally taught you, right? He was alive and he was the first person to teach you. You grew up where and at what age did you move into Cus D'Amato's house to start training as an amateur with him?
So great question. So first let's back up. My father was trained by Cus D'Amato back in the 40s.
Oh.
he and Floyd Patterson were stablemates, won the Golden Gloves together,
Wow. I didn't know that.
And so that's how I ended up with Cus. Now I
That's
began
amazing.
boxing
Okay.
in Stockton, California. I was
Okay.
16, found a gym on my own, and started fighting. And I knew my interest in boxing exceeded Stockton. So after high school, a couple of years into boxing, I moved back to New York to live and train with Cus D'Amato. So myself, Tyson, there was Frankie Minicelli, Danny Bucci, Matthew Jacobs, the Hilton brothers, Greg Walsh.
Kevin Rooney, right?
A lot of guys came and went.
Kevin Rooney, right?
Rooney was there, of course. He
Right.
was just got married and he was living out of the house by then. But we were part of that fraternity. And I was, in the end, Mike and I were the last fighters living and training with Cus.
Okay. Okay. So you and Mike Tyson obviously started together. Were you there before Mike or same time?
No, a couple years after.
A couple years after. Okay. And now, how many amateur fights did you end up having total?
I think I was at 60. I was right around 55 and 5, something. I think it was close, like 58 or 60. I'd have to look back. But
And what weight did you fight at?
mostly middle.
Middle. Okay, 65. Yeah, that was my weight too. Okay. So how many years were you in Cus's house?
From Cus died in 1985, November of 85. I was with him in the hospital when he passed. I wanted to represent not only my father, my family, but all of the hundreds and hundreds of boys that were under his tutelage and that he influenced their lives. So it was my honor and duty to be by his side. So that was November 85. I went there in August, I think, of 1982. So 83, 84, 85. So yeah, 2, 3, almost 4 years, I guess.
4 years. And when did you leave?
I fought another year and a half up in Catskill with Kevin.
You lived with Camille at that point, or you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you left after another year and a half or so.
Yeah. Yeah. I fought the Golden Gloves one more year, the Golden Gloves with the pinchback fight and all that. And then I had a nose operation that I wanted to turn pro. And I had a nose operation to kind of fix the deviated septum and the break that wasn't ever healed. And then while that was healing, I got in a car accident that broke it again. And then by that time, I was like, you know what? I've had 8 or 10 nose operations just to keep fighting. And I was like, you know what? Without Cus there, I didn't really trust anybody else for my career. And I just decided to move on.
Well, so let me ask you. I only ended up having one pro fight on the books, right? And I was very skilled, but I often regret not giving it a real college try in the pros. Do you ever feel that way?
I mean, listen, we're fighters, so we want to fight, right? And when you're gone for years, you remember the glory, you miss the glory, and you forget about the difficulties, the injuries, or whatever may be. I don't like to think about what I'm not doing. I focus on what I am doing. So I could look back like, could have, I should. Hey, I didn't. Like guys like John Scully, guys like Ricky Thomas that up in Albany that I was perhaps better than. They went further than me, and they are that fighter, and I have to commend them and and really give them that kind of respect and recognize that. So I just move on to other things.
I say this a lot, but so I, for a long time, had regrets because I felt like boxing was the one sport where I was really gifted at, which just came easy. But since I started doing content, what I'm doing now, and over the years, as I've gotten to know a lot of former champions, top 10 guys, whatever, as I see them age and progress, I've seen that the majority of fighters, not all, the majority end up either broke or with neurological damage of some kind, or forgotten, and now that kind of put more to ease my regrets that I had. Like, okay, there's a good chance because so many fighters, you see it. Some people have no memory now, or some people slur when they speak, or develop CTE, or So I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I feel like at the age we were, and I don't know how it was when you were in Cus's gym, but when I was there, Kevin was running it. We didn't wear headgear. We sparred. That was just the thing.
We,
Like,
we
no.
never wore headgear.
There you go. And I learned as I got older, that's not normal. Like most gyms make you wear headgear, you know?
Right.
So
but I
what,
don't believe in headgear. So I believe in the skills of how to evade the punches. That's what Cus taught. So if I were to look at it, Marco, okay, so, could I, what would have played out differently? First off, as Cus would say, not all my fighters become champions, but if you apply the same principles that you'll gain from this sport, that character development applied, you can and will become successful no matter what the endeavor is. Okay. And what's that? Hard work, sacrifice, positive affirmation, creative visualization, meditation, hypnosis, whatever it might take to help you, break through barriers and overcome challenges and obstacles and reach your full potential. Cus really worked on developing a person's character. So from boxing, I became an actor. For 13 years. I wrote, directed to theater, TV, movies, some things big, some things struggling to move along, whatever. So that was a new challenge for me to exceed in, okay? And big challenge, a lot of rejection. Now, being masochistic that I am, I go from boxing to acting, and now I'm full-blown in politics. So you've got three of some of the most challenging endeavors where you have to have thick skin on all three of these. Sure. You're challenged psychologically, physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, philosophically. I mean, all of these things come into play that have been part of my transition through life, I guess, from one journey to another. And I just don't look back with that regret. But I'll tell you this. I went, and you may have been in the gym. I went back to Catskill. Cus and Mike had separated, which was troubling for me. But Cus also told me in the hospital that he was going to replace Kevin when he got out of the hospital, which was also upsetting.
Wait, what do you mean?
Kevin and I were very close.
Cus was going to replace Kevin?
Oh, 100%.
We'll replace him in terms of being Mike's trainer?
100%.
Why?
So I'll tell you the whole full story. And I testified to this effect because Tyson was being sued by Kevin for the.
I was up in Catskill during that lawsuit. That's when I was. Yeah, okay. I remember that. Yeah.
All right. So when I went to see Cus in the hospital in Albany before he went down to Mount Sinai in New York City, came in, sat down with him. Cus, how you doing? And so he goes, he's being gruff. He goes, how's that Rooney guy? Now, when you say that. How's that Rooney guy? I said, he's fine, Cus. He's Cus. He goes, then I'll have to replace him when I get out of here, when I get out of the hospital and get back home. And now that causes me concern. Kevin resumed his professional career at one point. Mm-hmm. Kevin and I were sparring partners. Kevin was my trainer. Kevin and I were close. Kevin and I pushed each other. Kevin was an exceptionally good fighter. Kevin was very good.
He was.
Kevin brought the best out of anybody. I saw him get in the ring with all three of the Hiltons or four. Davey, Matthew, Alex, and the youngest was Stuart, who later passed away. Kevin got in the ring with all of these fighters that were excellent and bangers, and he gave them more than they can handle and then some, right? And these guys were future champions.
Right.
So Kevin was no slouch. He was a real good pro fighter. He had tenacity. He had heart. He could fight. Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't punch his way out of a wet paper bag, but that guy could fight.
Yeah.
So he and I are now really close. Now he's my trainer, he's my sparring partner, and we've got a good bond. Now you're telling me you're going to be replacing my trainer, basically. Mike's trainer is my trainer. And so I said, Cus, Kevin's all right. He goes, Tommy, I want you to remember, the worst combination in boxing is a drinker that's a gambler. They make decisions based on a higher calling, and you can't trust them. And that was Kevin.
Wow.
And that's the truth. Now, let's go back to how we started going down this path. I was just starting to say, I went back to the gym. You may have been there. This is a couple of years after I got out of boxing. I left. I was done. I went up there, and he had a stable of guys. Mike and Kevin were no longer together. And he had a stable of guys, and Stan Hoffman was there, one of my dad's friends. He was manager and for some of the fighters that Kevin had. And so I'm looking at guys, yeah, these guys, you're busy stable. That's awesome. How many amateur fights they have? And I'm watching these guys fight, and they're, they're sparring, and they're rudimentary, but they're not advanced. And Kevin's like, I don't believe in the amateurs. I get these guys to fight. They go fight. They're going to fight. They can do as good as the amateur. Why waste your time in the amateurs? Well, it's money. their records were 3-3, 2-2,
Do you remember who the
four
fighters
and
were? Do
three.
you remember who the fighters were? I'm curious if I was there at the time.
They all came and went. They all left. But my whole point is,
Okay.
Kevin would just fight these guys against anybody because he needed the money, and
So it's
that's the wrong.
gambling debt.
And it meant going back to Cus's, you can't depend on a person that's a drinker, it's a gambler, because they make decisions based on higher calling.
Okay.
So somebody calls up from Atlantic, say, I need an opponent. I got somebody. Yeah, how much you gonna pay? All right, he'll be there.
Okay.
And their records reflected. When your record is 2-2, when your record is 3-3, your record is 5-3, you're being mismanaged. And there's somebody making decisions that aren't healthy for your career. And so
Right.
knowing that, seeing that, Marco, I'm glad I walked away.
Well, why did Kevin continue then to train Tyson for a while if Cus did that word just never get down to Kevin because Cus died? Or what?
Yeah, I never told Mike that Kevin was going to be replaced. I never told Jimmy or Bill Caton or the managers, Jimmy Jacobs, that we were close to. I never told them Cus said he wants to get rid of Kevin. I'm not there to upset the apple crate.
Right.
That was Cus's decisions and Jimmy Jacobs and the management team. I'm not part of that. I'm not there to interfere it.
So you testified for this. Obviously, I don't think it worked because Kevin ended up getting the $4 million judgment.
They gave him basically a severance package. He was suing for 20-something million dollars of Mike's earnings and future earnings and whatever, and they gave him some money.
So did you and Kevin? I assume you testifying ruined your relationship with Kevin, right?
Probably like 10 years later, they did a reopening in the gym. This is going back 10, 15 years ago, and Kevin was there, and I gave him a hug, and
he was cool.
Yeah, we were cool. I just testified to the truth. That's it. I didn't have a grievance. I didn't have a side. I love Kevin. I respect Kevin. I appreciate Kevin. Very important part of my life. Equally the same for Cus, and most definitely the same for Mike. So I'm obliged not to do a favor for anybody, but to speak the truth.
The truth. My memories of Kevin. I was an amateur at the time, so there was no money being made off me. He drank a lot. Was a trigger temper. You know how he was, but he was a really good person from what I remember.
Agreed.
He took all these. Some of us were. Well, I was the only 15-year-old, but he took all these people in his house, would train them, would share his house with them. Was very warm. Was a good person, but would always be at the OTB, right? Is that what it's called? Would always be gambling at the OTB. Would always be drinking and arguing with his girlfriend, and but somewhat of a father figure to me, I guess, for the couple of years I was up there. And obviously he's suffering from dementia really badly right now.
Yeah.
To the point where I spoke with his son recently to where he doesn't even talk. I mean, my father had dementia, so I seen it. He just is. It's basically like a vegetative state. It's sad. Yeah. He's only 60-something years old, 62.
I know. No, it's very sad, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's a sad way.
And medically, they say that when you mix heavy alcohol drinking with head trauma, that's going to happen at a way younger age. Is what I've been told.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you ended up forming quite a good friendship with Tyson, right? With Mike.
Yeah, Mike. It's a friendship that endures.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have been friendly and in touch throughout this whole time.
Yeah. There was a period. I mean, listen, I've done my own thing. Our lives are intersect, and I'm doing my own thing, and Mike's doing his own thing. And there's people, when you had the Rory Holloways and John Horns, and and even Robin Givens, they try to divide and conquer, and they look at me as a person that's got a relationship with Mike, so therefore, let's keep him out so we can have more control or more influence and whatever. I'm not there to interfere or change anybody's life. I'm there to be a big brother. I've advised Mike in many ways in the past. Years later, he'll come back to me and say, man, you're the only one that ever fought for me to put money away or do things. He goes, man, thank you for always. And I've never taken money from Mike. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm still close to him. I've put more money in his pocket than he's put in mine, put it that way. Now, Mike's helped me run for office. Mike launched my political career. And it was Mike's idea for me to run for office to start off with. So I know I owe Mike a great amount. He's done so much for me. And in no way, shape, or form You know, am I aggrieved that, you know, other people made millions from Mike? And you know, that's not my friendship with Mike's not about money. My friendship with Mike is a fraternity, a brotherhood, a loyalty to Cus. I made a promise to Cus in the hospital to look out for Mike, to kind of, you know, be the big brother. And you know, I'm glad I did. Cus also, when he was talking about replacing Kevin, he had mentioned, he goes, I want there to be a role for you. I want you to have a role in watching out for Mike. That's what he said. He didn't promise me you'll be the trainer. You'll be not where I was an active fighter,
Right.
but he said, I want you to have an active role in looking out for Mike.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I said, I will, Cus. Don't worry. I'll look out. I'll always be looking out for Cus. But I had no thought that Cus is going to be dying in the next few weeks. I thought for sure, you know,
He'd
Cus
make
would
it.
be out of the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize, you know, it was only a few years I was up there, but like you know, Hasim Rahman was with me and we're friends to this day, Jeremy Williams. I mean, you really build such a crazy bond.
Yeah.
There's like a boxing, they say the double B, boxing brotherhood. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
it's a real thing. And it's, so
you knew Stan Hoffman, man. That was the Stan managed Rahman.
when Hasim came up, he was an amateur. So he didn't have a manager. He was literally, I saw him fight the #1 ranked heavyweight in the world in his second amateur fight. And he lost, but he came this close to beating him. A guy named was Joel Scott, if you remember him.
No.
Yeah, well, no, so I didn't know Stan Hobb. I don't think Hasim had a manager when I met him. This was in '92 that I met him.
Okay.
But so were there times throughout, like you were bringing up Mike's friends trying to did you ever have to go to him and did you ever say like, oh, I think this guy's kind of trying to use you or not being good, or did you just stay out of that kind of stuff?
Well, no, I would sit down with Mike and tell him, say, listen, you got what are you doing with Don King and this money and this expenditures? And we'd be arguing. He and I had literally screaming matches in front of him. Man, chill out, Tommy, man. We'll get you a BMW. We'll get you I don't want any freaking cars. I said, you guys think nobody's giving this away? This is all coming out of Mike's pocket. You guys are all, you know, fleecing Mike. Man, chill out, man. You know, everybody makes some money. You get some too. I'm like, listen, I am not about getting money from Mike. I said, everybody here, all you motherfuckers are hanging on, all you people that sit there taking from Mike, what are you doing for Mike? And Mike would be like, man, Tommy, chill out, man. You're always, you know, pushing, you're always stressing me about money, man. You're always talking about money. Man, you got to chill out, man. I don't care. I got so much money. I don't care. Let them take it. I'm like, all right, Mike. I said, you say that now, but I think you're going to end up regretting it later. I said, I'm looking out for you. You need to, you know, give me 10% of what you earn. Let me buy apartments. Let's get some residual income, buy some real estate, do something that's going to make you money outside of boxing. Man, Tommy, man, don't worry about it. I'm all set up, man. I'm good, man. I'm good. And that would be where those conversations went. And that's fine. I didn't, you know, every time I see him, I didn't fight and beat him up over it. I wanted to, you know, look out for my little brother and see how he's doing psychologically and mentally, emotionally. We go for walks. We talk about life challenges, where we are, you know, the journey we're on. You know, you talk to Mike, he's very intelligent.
Yeah,
life, politics, religion, human nature, relationships.
Yeah.
Mike's very not only well read, he has a photographic memory. So I always learn and listen when talking with Mike in so many ways. And he's philosophical, he's retrospective, he's you know, Mike's a fascinating person, and I'm very lucky to have had him in my life as I have.
Right. Well, speaking of, what are your thoughts on this Jake Paul fight?
So I'll look at it I talked to Mike about this a year ago, which, by the way, I called him up. I said, listen, or when I was with him, I said, listen, you and I got to do a tag team boxing event. I said, you and Jake Paul and me and Logan, his brother. I said, I'll start off. You don't even have to get your gloves wet. I said, I'll knock out the brother in the first round. Or I said, you know, at the end of a round, we can tag team and go back and forth and put together some fun rules. And Mike's laughing. He's like, oh, man, because nobody's ever done that. Because Mike loves wrestling, you know, so the tag teaming and all that. So it was a fun idea. I said, but listen, I said, all jokes aside, I said, if the opportunity comes for you to fight Jake Paul, I said, Mike, this is a no-brainer, because the management rule in boxing, if you're a smart manager, most amount of money, least amount of risk.
Okay.
Now, you don't have a lot of good trainers. You don't have a lot of good managers. A lot of good managers don't care who you're fighting. They only ask how much is the offer. And you look at a lot of fighters' careers and tough battles all the time. It's like, really? There isn't some lesser fighters you couldn't fight for the same amount of money and have a more prolonged career with less risk to your fighter's well-being. So rule number one, I think, check the box for rule number one: most amount of money, least amount of risk. Secondly, in a fight, you want to end it as quickly and easily as possible with least amount of risk to yourself. All right. And that's going to be this match. There is very low risk to Mike. This is going to be a good financial reward with very low risk, I think, and plan on it being a first round destruction.
Okay. So you don't think, like, look, Jake Paul, my opinion of Jake Paul is he has good natural ability, but he has no experience, obviously. And he's naturally, people forget, he's naturally at least 20, 30 pounds smaller than Mike, right? Mike's 225, 230 natural, right? Jake
Correct.
Paul's barely 200 pounds. But you don't, the question that comes up is this: can 30 years of youth, can that trump at all the experience, but the aging experience of somebody like Mike? Because Mike is one of the greatest to do it, but he's also, damn near 60, and Jake is younger. Do you see any scenario where Jake could give him a problem?
No. If they were equals, if Jake was, let's just say, for instance, and Mike's not, but let's say Jake was an Olympic boxing amateur champion. He had 80 amateur fights. He had been fighting for the last 8, 10, 12 years, began boxing at 9, 10, 12 years old. And he's got these, 80 or 120 amateur fights. And he's now, 8 pro fights, and he's challenging a Tyson. And here's a guy with some legacy of experience that began young. He's got this experience. He's fought under pressure. He's fought and won the Olympic silver medal or whatever. So he's fought on some high platform stages. And now you've got 2 equal challenge guys, of the same weight, the same, competitive backgrounds, let's say. Then you might have this real challenge of who's going to equate and have an edge. That's not the case.
No.
It takes 5 years, Marco. Cus would say, Cus, come on, I want to turn pro. You're not ready. Come on, Cus. I want to go. Frankie Minicelli, to this day, I want to turn pro. I want to fight pro. And there's a little clip where Cus is talking to me and Frankie. I just walk in on the room. Cus is sitting in his chair, and he says, well, the problem with you is, when you get hit, you get all excited. It's good. Your hands drop down and your chin comes up. And that was, unfortunately, Frankie, when he would fight, he'd want to win so bad. He'd just want to go and fight it. He'd literally, he'd be training, bang, 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 hands up, slip, slip. The bell would sound, and he'd come charging out of his corner with his hands down and his chin out like a lantern in a storm, as Cus would say. So you can't turn that guy pro with a clear conscience, right? And Cus would say it takes about 5 years of steady fighting before you're calm enough to see punches coming at you, dealing with pressure. Now, I will say this, Marco, and I mean this in all sincerity. This guy's got guts.
Paul.
This guy Jake Paul with very little fighting experience, he's fought on some major platforms.
Yeah.
Some major events, and he's not laid down or collapsed or folded under pressure. I have to tell you, that's highly commendable. So it's kind of a special guy here that rises to the occasion to a degree that's been sufficient thus far against the competition he's been in the ring against. And when he fought Tommy Fury, he didn't fight a tomato can.
No.
He fought an experienced fighter.
Yeah, he lost, but I mean, it was competitive.
But here's in the ring with an experienced boxer. Mm-hmm. So you got to give credit and recognize that he's got some heavy hands, fair, but we're not dealing with equals. Mike has shown that under pressure, rises to the occasion, fighting for titles, when motivated, when trained, when focused, and executing a plan of action. That Mike is unbeatable.
So the main questions are, and I don't know if you can answer this, but I heard the rules of the bout, because that's the main question. What are the, because it's an exhibition. Apparently, it might be a pro sanction, but I heard exhibition. I heard 14-ounce gloves. I heard 2-minute rounds. And then I heard that the referee is, quote, going to let it not go beyond a, quote, competitive exhibition bout. Do you know?
I don't know the rules, what's been negotiated.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. There's been some rumors. I don't know. I can't attest to what the rules are at this point. No matter what, listen, You know how hard it is getting hit by when you're a heavyweight. I don't care if you're Jake Paul or you're Mike Tyson. You got 14-ounce gloves. That's no problem. You can still get hurt. You can still cause damage. That's not this magical absorption cushion
Oh, I know.
of alleviating danger and getting your bell rung.
Yeah.
So that doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form. I've seen Mike knock people down and out with 18-ounce or 20-ounce gloves.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think another thing that people are concerned about is that they're not really going to go hard. They're going to, because Mike didn't go hard on Roy Jones. I'm not saying he should have, but he didn't fully.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
I talked to Mike about that, and there was he was training, and he just got Raphael and Billy White, both capable, great guys, and they're working Mike's corner, and they're training Mike in full preparation. So I was in and out of the gym and watching and overseeing just a little bit. I'm not in control, far from it.
Right.
But I'm around, okay, and I've got experience and I've seen things, and Mike likes to hear from me, and so I talked to Mike. I said, "What do you want in this match?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you're launching a Legends of Boxing platform." And he goes, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "Sugar Ray Leonard says he might want to do it. And I heard from Lennox Lewis, and he says he might want to do it." I said, "Okay, fair enough." I said, "So I'm seeing and hearing about a lot of first round knockout, go out there, blow them out and do all this stuff." I said, "Okay." I said, "Would that help your platform of retired boxers wanting to have a little a little level of relevance and get back in the ring and use your skills and demonstrate?" I mean, I could not think of anybody more capable than Ray Leonard. Still a well-trained athlete, highly experienced, always fun to watch, a great fighter. So to think about that, and Mike says, "Yeah," he goes, "Well, what do you think?" I said, first off, and Marco, here's the truth. In all of my amateur fights, if I were to name my 3 toughest fights I had in the ring, 2 of them were exhibitions. So it can escalate.
It can. Just like sparring does. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I told Mike, I said, "Look," I said, "if this escalates, I know you'll be able to handle yourself just fine." I said, "But think about this. What if you outbox the boxer?" I said, "Mike, instead of going out, loading up," I said, "you right now are working with Raphael and Billy. Work on your skills. Slipping, moving. Let's go back to the Cus style. Perpetual motion instead of being a target coming in looking to land the big punch." And I said, "Let's put in the extra work and get back to the basics. Constant head movement, slipping, moving, weaving, counter punching." I said, "Let's outbox the boxer." I said, "I think that'll be more impressive than going in there and knocking someone out in this new platform you're trying to launch." And he goes, "Tommy, I like it. Let's do that." I said, "Okay." Now, if it changes, if it escalates, it escalates. But at least let's prepare to outbox the boxer.
Interesting.
And that's what Mike did. He was relaxed. I'm so proud of him for doing that. And I think it was a fair exhibition where people got to see some flashes of action, potential, of skills.
Yeah,
I think for Mike to finish demonstrating more skills now when he was in his 50s than he was doing in his 30s, I think is a great attribute to the skills that he learned from Cus D'Amato.
Absolutely. No, Mike looked really good. Roy wanted no part. He was just holding the whole, he wanted no part of that. And there was a significant size difference, but it was fun. It came in a time when all of us, COVID, I think, was still, people needed some entertainment. It's too bad that platform, by the way, that Legends thing never went any further, because I was looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I have no idea about the business, what did or didn't work out or how it penciled out. But Mike's gone on to be successful in many other things.
Sure, do other things.
He's so busy. He and his wife Kiki, and I have to tell you, I've been around Mike a lot of years, and Dr. Monica Turner is a very nice gal, and she was in his life during a time where I think Mike wasn't ready for a relationship, but Mike's commitment, his involvement, and the partnership he has with his wife Kiki. She's just so wonderful, and her mother, her father. Mike's surrounded by a family now. He's got his 2 children that he's actively involved and engaged as a dad. I'm proud of Mike and just thrilled of that support network he has and the family structure he's able to enjoy at this time in his life.
Yeah, I've only met Mike once when I was up at Kevin's. Obviously, he was in prison actually at that time, and he was no longer talking to Kevin anyway. So I've only met him once, kind of on the side. But so back to the Jake Paul thing. So you think against Jake Paul, you think it's not going to be let's box. It's going to be let me lay this guy out.
Well, I don't trust Jake Paul in any way, shape, or form. He's a sensation, and sensations do sensational things, and they make a. Who's to say if Jake doesn't feel like if Jake feels like this isn't going to go well and this is unfolding in a real bad way, maybe Jake bites Mike's ear. Mike got a lot of play off of the Evander Holyfield,
What?
good or bad.
That is
right?
something he would do to get attention.
Yeah, it's something that he'll have a legacy forever. That Tyson bit Holyfield, and I bit Tyson, and that's the way. That's karma.
I didn't
You
even think
can
of
say
that.
anything.
I didn't even think of that. Okay.
Yeah. So in a fight, end it as quickly and easily as possible with least amount of risk to yourself. I do not believe, and I don't know. I do not believe there's an idea that we're going to box and put on an exhibition. I believe you cannot trust Jake. I believe he's got some danger to him. I believe there's an element of surprise that he's capable of. And I believe that Mike needs to get in. I think Mike's taking this serious. It's going to be a test for Mike. And I think Mike's going to rise to the occasion and be more than a handful to deal with.
So I hope you're right. My one fear is that what I heard about the referee keeping it within competitive exhibition, meaning he could just stop it if it gets too hot. But I hope more than anything in the world, just like I wanted Anthony Joshua to knock out Ngannou, because I'm a boxing purist, I hope Mike destroys Jake. But let me ask you, just hypothetically, what if Mike Tyson loses? What if he gets stopped by Jake Paul? What would that do you think, to boxing or to Mike's legacy, if anything?
Well, it won't. First off, it makes right now Mike's more relevant in boxing than he was for the last 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's an opportunity. Fame and fortune, really, which oftentimes go hand in hand, depend on relevancy. When's the last time a singer had a number one hit, right? And how many concerts can they sell out and go to and perform in before those crowds start to dwindle, right? So it all depends on your relevancy.
Right.
And so just as we saw when he did The Hangover, all of a sudden he became relevant. Thanks to YouTube, people can go online and like, oh man, look at this guy, Mike Tyson. Oh, wow. So a whole new generation woke up to Mike. So then he did the Roy Jones exhibition, and he's doing this whatever exhibition match or whatever it's going to be. So it gives Mike a level of relevancy. Okay, that I don't think there's any shame in a retired fighter, as Mike is, coming out of retirement, challenging and having a match against somebody younger that's challenging him, and who names somebody that's been near 60 years old, that's been a former heavyweight champion, will have done and challenged themselves like Mike is? Not George Foreman, and that's a capable guy, the oldest man, at 44 to become champion. So I wouldn't never count him out. Okay, there's people that could do this, but they haven't done it. You just see Muhammad Ali did. You see Joe Frazier do it. You've seen a lot of the times they attempt comebacks and they're very short-lived. So you've got Mike that's been an exceptional athlete. Still has speed, still has power, still has clairvoyance in his mind, very clear focus. He was telling me they did a recent CAT scan, and the doctor said 0 effects or show of any damage to your brain. 0, negligible. He goes, your skull, your brain, your everything is in such perfect, pristine order. I would have never known you were a fighter. Is exactly what the doctor had said and what Mike told me a year ago.
That's great.
So you've got a person that has motor skill, speed. Let's say Mike's declined 15%, not 50%. Mike's declined 15%.
No, he looks pretty close to how he used to when you see this.
But if you were to stretch it, so he's not quite, doesn't have quite the same speed or strength. If you were to say that,
right.
So 85% of Mike at 57 years old is, in my opinion, superior to probably the vast majority of anybody in the ring now. Now, the question is if you can focus, work hard, execute, stay disciplined, and put in that extra effort to advance up the ranks of who you're fighting. But in this instance, against a Jake Paul, I believe there's a level of competitive nature to it. But I believe there's going to be, Mike's going to be at a level above anything that Jake Paul can handle.
I agree. I guess there's a little bit of that Holyfield versus Belfort flashback that you get where you, I guess the question is, and I don't, this is an actual question, it's not rhetorical, and I don't know if you know the answer, but does age impede on your ability to take punches? So we know that Mike offensively looks almost how he used to be, but do you think being older could maybe make his punch resistance less?
I don't think so. I'm still in the ring on occasion, training and sparring and working out, and I don't have having that experience at all. I think, taking a punch there's neurological and there's psychological. So you see some people, they get hit a couple punches and they've lost their heart to continue, and they become game quitters, lay against the ropes.
I just mean like Holyfield. If you saw, he got hit with a couple shots that in his prime he would have just smiled, but he got all wobbly, and you wonder, was it the age or what was it?
And that's a fair question. There's the neurology to getting hit, and the physiological effect is part of it. And where is Evander compared to Mike? I think Evander took far more punishment in boxing than Mike did. There's a factor to that, Marco, that I've never thought about or considered. And I'm certainly not a doctor or a neurologist to equate that probability. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're a gladiator in spirit and you're of sound mind and body, and you're competitive and you have a will to win, I think it's very hard to stop that person, especially somebody that's got experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And I think it's good to hear this, because I think if Mike comes out full throttle, it's going to be a lot of problems for Jake. A lot of problems.
The kid's got guts, man. This kid's got guts. He's got heart and he's got guts. There's no dog in him. You have to recognize this guy's risen to the occasion, and there's no dog in this. In Jake
I will say one thing though, you're right, but Jake has never been in front of anybody. Of course, Mike is a whole different level. He's one of the, he's one of the greatest of all time. But Jake's never even been in there with somebody who's a real threat in terms of power punching. Has he? And maybe I'm missing something. I don't think he has.
I don't know Tommy Fury's.
No, he's not that hard of
anything. But
he's not a weak puncher.
He's a capable fighter.
Right.
That's a great point. That's a good point.
So we don't know how much heart he's going to have once he gets caught with a couple. And what people don't realize about Mike, and you know this, that I always tell people this, Mike's power always stands out. But what was so impressive, and Roy said this, people don't realize Mike's footwork and how quickly he moves and comes in. That is what throws people off.
Correct.
That's what's going to make Jake's going to be like, whoa, he's in front of me before I even blinked, and now I'm getting hit.
Right.
And what's he going to do?
Right. And that's true. When you're evasive like Mike, everybody thinks about Mike with this power, but look at the angles, look at the movement, look at the setup.
And you and I learned all of how the twists, the springs. We know how to do all that. And Mike just does it at boom.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And when Mike does that in later parts of his career, he was lazy. He wouldn't do that. He would look to the easy punch, the quick knockout, load up, look for it because he could get away with it. He had speed and power to capitalize if somebody was making that when he capitalize on somebody's vulnerability. But Mike training, slipping, weaving, moving side to side with action and activity and masterfully executing a plan of action. That's a dangerous fighter. At 57, Mike's a dangerous fighter.
Yeah. So that's going to be exciting. So I assume you'll be at the fight, right, ringside?
Yeah, I may be in the ring. I may be in the corner with him. We'll see.
Oh, I hope so. How old are you now, if I may ask?
I'm 60.
60. Okay. And you said you still work out. You still hit the bag and spar sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, me too. I box. It's funny. I box every day. I don't spar really anymore.
Do you really?
Every day.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's not only is it because I'm 47, so this. Once we get in our 40s, doing exercising is so much more important physically, but also mentally. You could attest to this, right? There's nothing more gratifying than getting that endorphin rush after a workout, right? Yeah, you feel great. So
agreed.
That's why I do it every day. Yeah, I still do it every day.
Good. That's a good discipline. It's good to get out there. I'm sporadic, and you would not that you know this, but honestly, 12 years ago, I was a pedestrian hit by a car doing about 40 miles an hour. So I've had a bunch of spine surgeries, and I'm not dead. I didn't get killed. I'm not in a wheelchair, so I'm lucky and blessed every day of my life, but it definitely took, like, I can work out and then the spine spikes of pain start to increase, and
Lumbar or thoracic or what?
all of it. I've had neck surgery, thoracic, and lumbar. So
So they
right now,
fused it? You had
my right leg is numb. My foot is on fire as we speak.
oh
It's like,
Jesus.
but I walk, talk, and I'm doing fine. So I have no complaint. I should be in a wheelchair or dead. So
So that does affect your ability to work out then, right? You're saying?
it does. If I start lifting weights, then it loads up the spine, and then the discs and the pain and the spiking increases. So it's somewhat of an excuse, because I'm sure if I did more yoga or Pilates or more of this or that, it might be better. But I'm busy as a dad and as a county supervisor. I'm running for mayor of Stockton, so I've got many irons in the fire. I keep busy, and I'm lucky and blessed to be as mobile and doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, man, that's great. I hope you win that. All right, well, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, I always ask people this, if you could name for me first your top 5 greatest fighters of all time, in your opinion.
Wow. Okay, I won't rank them. I'm not ranking
No,
them.
no, yeah, you don't have to
I'm
rank.
just gonna name 5. Okay.
Okay.
You have to look at Sugar Ray Robinson. Clearly is
Yes.
on the top tier. Henry Armstrong. I mean, there's so many. Roberto Duran. You've got Willie Pep. You've got, oh my gosh, Ali. Tyson says you give more. I give more credit to Ali now than ever before, because the fact that he proved, and you don't beat him twice. Jesus, this guy gets in the ring, he gave it all, and like Mike says, he's willing to die in the ring, and I was not. He goes, that guy was, there was no dog in that. There was nothing but showmanship and levels of excellence from him in so many capacities. You've got Barney Ross, you've got, I mean, Sam Langford, Harry Greb. I can't even stop at 5. You've got so many great fighters. Mickey Walker, the toy bulldog, great fighters, man. These guys are epic. And, I laugh and, Mayweather, top, best. Far from it. Not even.
Okay.
Not even in the top 100 if you look
Floyd.
at the history of fighters.
Okay.
Not even close.
Era for era. People don't understand. There's a difference. Floyd would have beaten these guys if there was a time machine, but era for era, because there's so many advances in exercise science and genetics and nutrition and all that. You can't compare. I feel like Jack Johnson to me is one of the greatest fighters of all time, heavyweight, right?
Sure.
But if you put him in a time machine, I mean, Andrew Galata would have beat him just because of the size difference and the advancement. So I do era for era.
I disagree. They would have, guys like that were masterful. They were fighters. They learned their craft. They had experience. They would adjust to the evolution or the speed and how the sport changed. Because the sport coming off of bare knuckles, remember, there used to be sometimes there was no round limit to fights. So you can go to a fight, you go out to dinner, come back and have it after a steak dinner, and you're catching the last 45 minutes of action, because these guys would go battle for an hour or hour and a half, and the round ended when somebody got knocked down. You drag your corners,
Right.
Fan the towel, pour some cold water on you, give you some smelling salts, and you went back out. So but the action was much slower.
Maybe I just feel like let's use the Galata versus Jack Johnson example. I mean, Galata's 6'5", 250 against Johnson, who's barely 6 feet and barely 200 pounds. I feel like it would have been a problem because of the advancement and evolution of just mankind, and of course in boxing and exercise science. But
I look at experience, though. Coming off the bare knuckle days, you had great trainers that taught fighters how to be defensive, how to slip, how to move, how to roll. When you've got guys that are master boxers, and they were, your game is elevated. Now, if you, throughout the time, the activity in the round increased, but I think those athletes would adapt and adjust to whatever the competition level. They're champions for a reason, because they rise to the occasion. Andrew Galata is not a champion.
No.
Why? He didn't rise to the occasion.
No.
So you could look at, but how about the Klitschko's, or what about Joe Louis? These guys, you can size and weights, and you can make comparisons, but these elite champions, and they rose to the occasion and proved themselves to be champions for a reason. and
Right.
and you couldn't discount them, even though the eras transcend. Now, that doesn't mean all fighters can transcend and fight and be competitive in an era and excel. Like Duran is one of them. Duran could fight in any era.
He's one of the few. Yeah.
Listen, they were master fighters.
Yeah.
There's no master fighters now.
Yeah.
These guys don't have the experience to be master fighters.
You have a point about I never thought about maybe one of those guys could adjust, but it's kind of hard to make an adjustment for what would be 100 years of evolution if we had a fictional time machine that had them fight each other. But that's a good point. My favorite is the fighter I think is the #1 greatest fighter of all time in his prime is Roy Jones. I think I never saw anybody with the level of skill. I mean, that Roy and the level of dominance that Roy had. The problem is what happened later in his career heavily marred people's opinion of him. So I'm going by just in their prime. But, a prime Mike Tyson, like 88, the one who beat Spinks, I mean, he could beat any heavyweight in history.
I agree.
You know what I mean? But he peaked so young, Mike. Like once, I mean, you know this better than anybody. Once he had his issues and he left Kevin and, like you said, he got off Cuss's style and, but Sugar Ray Robinson, Roy Jones, not in order, and Joe Louis to me are the three I could think of off the top.
Yeah, I didn't say Lewis, but yeah, clearly. But if you look at history, again, look at Mickey Walker, look at Harry Greb, look at these fighters that were just dominant forces, and they had 200 pro fights. These guys, Willie Pep, master boxer, Sandy. Again, you look at these guys. Aaron Pryor would have waxed Mayweather.
Floyd. You have a good argument. Pryor is such an underrated fighter. You never hear him come up in the top greats, but he should be.
Yeah. And he's another one that would transcend time. I could see him Madison Square Garden, 1945, 1950, fighting anybody.
Or right now.
Of his class. Absolutely. Oh, please, right now. Come on. These guys aren't. You've got 17 divisions, 4 sanctioning bodies. Every freaking body is a champion. There's no challengers. You've got your top tier athletes who've gone to every other sport but boxing. Not even, this is not the same sport. It's on a rapid and dissension that's I don't know what it'll ever recover from. And I'll just finish with this, Marco. Somebody had told me recently, I guess statistically, back in the 50s, there were over 4,000, on average, 4,000 professional boxing cards in New York State. Last year, there were 9.
Wow.
So you want to look at the activity of fighters, the competition, the pushing each other in the gym to rise to even make it into the top 10 was so difficult back then.
Wow.
You had 8 champions, 8 divisions, 1 sanctioning body, basically. Anybody in the top 10 and probably 20 to 50 people below who's in the top 10 could fight that champion and have a good chance of winning because they were all, the caliber of fighter was all so high, so good. They fought. You look at their records. You've seen the ring record books. You look at the records. The month of July, fought July 2nd, fought July 7th, and fought July 9th and 10th, fought July 13th, fought July 17th, fought July 21st, fought July 26th. That was just 1 month of activity for any particular fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
They were master fighters.
Yeah. It was way more. And weirdly enough, there's less brain damage back then than there is now, which I don't understand, but
skills. They learned how listen, when you learned how to fight back then, coming off the bare knuckle days, you learned how to slip, you learned how to roll. And I'll give credit to the Philly shell, whatever that they may call it. James Toney was a masterful defensive fighter, much similar of how Mayweather fights. I'm not a fan for doing this and laying back and giving your opponent opportunity to hit you from angles and continue on, because you're now passive. You're not exciting the crowd. You're not pleasing when you're laying back and waiting for your fighter, your opponent to capitalize, that you can capitalize on a mistake they might make. It's not an exciting fight to watch. So my opinion, you have to give credit to these guys that fought so often. They were master. Maxie Rosenblum. Cus said he modeled our style mostly from him. You know that story, right?
No.
So here's Maxie Rosenblum. They used to call him like Dodo Bird or something when he was a kid, because he had a bit of a speech impediment, so he spoke in a certain way to the little boy, similar to that. And this guy had cauliflower ears, scar tissue. And so, talking the way you'd be on stage, you'd be the punch-drunk, typical punch-drunk fighter, right? Well, Cus said you couldn't hit that guy in the ass with a handful of buckshot. He was
Wow.
a master boxer. But back in an era coming out of the Depression, you fought on a weekly basis. If you get a little bruise on your eye, guess what? 2 nights later, you're in the ring because you got to make money. So the scar tissue hardened. You didn't have time to take the blood out of your ear and let it heal and let the skin regraft to the cartilage. So you fought and you just, hey, you toughed it out. But people, hey, there's a fighter. Look at him. I saw him fight. He's in the neighborhood. You were somebody, right? So you didn't even, you wanted to look like a fighter because you were the elite athletes of the time. So you had this guy that looked punch drunk, had over 150 pro fights, and forgive me for not remembering his record, but 150, 180 pro fights, I believe. And it was a master boxer, right? So these guys learned their skills coming out of that era where trainers taught you to slip and roll and move and counterpunch, step inside, hit from angles, so that you were a little more smart. There are no great trainers in boxing anymore. There are none. I see these guys with pool noodles in the ring. What the hell? I've never been hit by anybody coming at me with chopping anything with noodles, like pool noodles. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
That's a new thing, yeah, newish. Yeah.
One trainer did it on TV, and all of a sudden everybody's got pool noodles in their garage training their kid or in the local gym. How about you teach kids to move your head after your last punch? How about you teach them not to be a stationary target or step side to side versus combinations that, whoa, look really impressive, and you're frozen like a statue after you've thrown your combination.
Yeah. So how did this, you were saying this prompted the Cus's style, Maxie Rosenblum?
Yeah, Cus was, as you may know, blind in one eye, so he had a very limited boxing career. But his brother would go to the gym, he'd go to the gym, and he just studied and watched these fighters, and he said the most skilled of all of them was Maxie Rosenblum. And one time, Mike's like, come on, Cus, you weren't a great teacher from the beginning. When you opened up the gym, you had to have constantly made mistakes and maybe even lost some fighters along the way. And Cus said, yeah, he goes, and true to that point, the way Mike and I were trained in the 80s is much different than the way my father and Floyd Patterson were trained by Cus in the 40s. So there's definitely a difference. There was an evolution, and Cus kept perfecting based on how he saw Rosenblum with tight hands and slipping and hitting from angles, and the anticipation. If you can put yourself in a striking position and split-second timing, take that punch and move in anticipation of where any possible threat might come from, which is pretty limited at that point based on your position, Cus created a scientific model of how to hit, not get hit, but do it in a manner that excites the crowd. It's a pay business. It's an entertainment sport. You want to put butts in the seat. So if you're entertaining and you're exciting and you've got even some knockout power like Tyson, and you're destroying your opponents and you're doing it with thrilling action, you've got the opportunity to have a successful career and make money.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know Maxie Rosenblum was
impetus.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's wild.
100%.
Inspiration. That's great. Yeah. I'm gonna watch him. I know who he is. I've seen a little bit, but I have to refresh my memory
Well, he called him Slapsy Maxie because here's another one that couldn't punch his way out of a wet paper bag. I mean, of his fights, you're like 26 knockouts. How do you have 150 plus fights and you got 26 knockouts or whatever the number is? It's very low.
Right.
But he was a crowd pleaser. He fought hard and fought to levels of high acclaim. Crazy.
Well, Tom, man, I appreciate you talking to me. If you're ever in New York, by the way, hit me up. I own a comedy club in Brooklyn. So if you're ever in New York, I do. That's what it's my full time. If you're ever in New York, let me know. Come by. We talk some boxing. If you want to see a show, whatever, I'll take care of you.
I appreciate that. I'm going to come in May, I believe. I'm going to pop in town for a short bit. But as you know, I lived in New York City for many years after boxing, and so that's my heart is in New York in part, but I'm definitely in California. Yeah, so let's get together possibly, and if not, maybe I know John Scully's going to do another one of his events in June. So yeah, but let's chat again maybe after Tyson versus Paul, whenever that is. We could talk about it. Well, thanks for talking boxing. Of course. I'm lucky to have had the knowledge and experience I have from Cus. It's not my knowledge. I'm passing on and sharing many of the great lessons from a master philosopher, teacher, and
I get
mentor
it.
for
In a
myself and
way,
others.
mine was from Kevin, and then you now taught me some stuff that was from Kevin's train, the inspiration or trainer or whatever. So yeah, so it's great to hear.
There's a kinship, brother, that we have, and there's a legacy that we're part of.
Absolutely.
From me to whoever I kind of work and teach some kids now, that's a legacy from Cus. From Cus to Kevin to you to us, it's all the same. We're all part of that same legacy and that lineage.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's great. It definitely means a lot. So, but anyway, thanks again, Tom, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, Marco. All the
All right,
best. Cheers.
you too, man. Take care.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.